In the year 2161, the human aging gene has been deactivated, and at the age of 25, people stop aging. However, after a year people die of a heart attack unless they buy time. For this reason the time of life has become money and is the way people pay for their needs. The rich can live for many years and even forever, while the rest of the poor population must work, negotiate or ask for loans to be able to live from day to day. Each person lives in a different time zone, depending on their social status. The poor live in the ghettos where they work day after day. The rich live in the luxurious New Greenwich suburb on the outskirts of the city. Each time zone is fenced off with walls and video security cameras, where increasingly costly tolls are collected in time to prevent poor people from crossing or migrating to places of higher social status. Welcome to Worth Recap. This time I show you the summary of the movie in time. In the ghettos we meet Will Salas, who is a 28-year-old factory worker who lives with his mother, Rachel, who has just turned 50. They have financial problems, so Rachel works overtime to cover her debts. That's why she asks Will to wait for her at the bus stop, since after her shift she will have little time, and still gives Will some time. At night Will goes to the factory where he works his shift, and at the end of the day he discovers that his payment decreased. After this he and his best friend Borrell visit a bar where they see that a strange man, Henry Hamilton, who has more than a century of life programmed into his watch and flaunts his time to others. For this reason Will approaches Hamilton and tells him that he must go, because if he does not he will be attacked and his watch will be emptied. However, Hamilton does not give importance to him, and immediately Fortis arrives, the mafia boss belonging to the gang called the Minutemen, who steal time from others with the use of force. Will helps Hamilton to escape and takes him to an abandoned factory to hide overnight. There Hamilton tells Will that he comes from Greenwich and also tells him the secret that only the rich know, with the technology developed in recent years. There is enough time for everyone, but it has been kept only so that the rich have more time and become immortal. Since that way they control the global underpopulation, because while they raise the cost of living, they will make the poorest people die. The rich call it the system. For his part, Hamilton is already tired of staying alive for so long, since his mind is tired, and also knowing that his long life is due to taking away the lifetime of other people, that does not let him in peace. After Hamilton asks him what Will would do if he had all the time, he tells her that he would waste. Hamilton feels sorry for Will and transfers his remaining time to life to him while Will is still sleeping, leaving him with only 5 minutes. Upon awakening, Will discovers the time loaded on his watch and through a window sees Hamilton near the river. Will runs to save him, but before he can get there, Hamilton's time runs out and he has a heart attack and dies. Will arrives at the place where Hamilton died and only manages to see his body. At that moment a surveillance camera detects his presence. Will flees the area and meets his friend Borrell and tells him what happened, then transfers 10 years to him as a last gift of friendship, since now he will take his mother to Greenwich. At night Rachel finishes her shift and tries to take the bus to meet her son, but the bus driver mentions that the time to pay is 2 hours, but she only had an hour and a half left. She asks him to let her get on with an hour, and when she reached her destination her son would pay her the difference, but the driver told her that it was illegal and recommended that she run. Rachel gets off the bus and starts running. Meanwhile Will waits for her at the stop with a bouquet of flowers to celebrate the time achieved. Seeing that she doesn't get off, he senses what happened and runs to meet her. However, he can't get there in time and she dies in his arms. The next morning the police, led by Raymond Leon, find Hamilton's body in the river, and to find out what happened they check a nearby security camera and observe Will near the area, so they believe he is responsible. And they go looking for him. On Will's side, remembering what Hamilton told him about the inequity of the system, Will decides to take revenge on the rich and enters Greenwich by paying more than a year of life. There he stays in a luxury hotel, and at night he enters a casino where he plays poker against Philip Weiss, the founder of the Weiss Time Lenders Company, where he bets almost all his time and wins more than a millennium. The daughter of Philip, Sylvia Weiss, is surprised by Will's bold attitude, and invites him to a family party. Will arrives at the party and meets Sylvia's grandmother and mother. Will dances with Sylvia and they create a good atmosphere. But shortly after Leon arrives and questions Will about what happened with Hamilton, Will tells them that he won his time on a bet, but Leon does not believe him and confiscates most of his money, leaving him with only 2 hours to be processed. Will manages to free himself and escapes by taking Sylvia hostage, then takes his car and tries to return to the ghetto with her, but being distracted he does not notice some spikes and runs over them, causing them to crash and become unconscious. At that moment Fortis arrives and sees Sylvia, who has a decade of time, and tries to take her away, but before he can do so they hear the police and they run away. Waking up, Sylvia is distraught to discover that she only has 30 minutes left, so Will gives her some of her time. Will and Sylvia visit Borrell to make up for some of the time he gave him, but learn from his wife that Borrell died of alcoholism at the age of 9 on his watch. Will sees Sylvia's diamond earrings and decides to sell it to a pawn shop, but only gets 2 days. Then Will calls Philip to demand a 1,000-year ransom for her daughter, saying that she deposited in charity that will distribute it among the ghetto population. That night, Will takes Sylvia home and lends her address of her mother's, then they talk to each other about their lives. Will tells her that his mother died recently and that his father died when he was a baby. He also tells her that his father made his living gambling. The next day they discover that Philip did not pay the ransom and Sylvia tells him that her father's fortune was not earned by giving away time. After Will frees Sylvia and leaves her on a phone to call her parents. Shortly after Leon shows up and tries to kill Will, but Sylvia notices and shoots him in the shoulder. Then Will transfers 2 hours of time to Leon, instead of taking it from him, since Will knows that the timekeepers also live from day to day like the people of the ghetto, which surprises Sylvia. They both escape in Leon's patrol. Later, they steal a new car and some time. Will tells Sylvia that he can still walk away from the situation and save himself, but she decides to stay by her side, realizing that his life in Greenwich was meaningless. Will wants to change the system, so Sylvia advises him to rob one of his father's premises, where they steal the capsules that store time and distribute them among the poor, since deep down they are recovering the time stolen by the rich that belonged to the poor. Leon realizes that in the ghetto time begins to circulate that does not belong to them, so he puts a 10-year reward for his capture. Philip sees how his daughter has been stealing from their banks. For their part, Will and Sylvia spend the night in a hotel where they are found by Leon, but they manage to escape by bribing the bus driver. In the morning they rent an entire hotel so as not to be discovered, but they are seen by a person. Fortis starts looking for Will for his reward and interrogates several people, including the one he saw entering the hotel. He tells them his location in exchange for a part of the reward. Fortis and his henchmen arrive at the hotel and to avoid unnecessary bloodshed challenges Will to a fight. Will fights fiercely and manages to defeat Fortis and kill his henchmen. Will and Sylvia escape from the place, and outside they realize that their previous efforts were futile, because the rich simply increase the cost of living in the ghettos to maintain the system. To make a real change they need 1,000,000 years, so they devise a plan to steal 1,000,000 years from Weiss's private headquarters. Sylvia meets her father while Will, disguised as a bodyguard, takes him hostage so he can enter his vault, and they steal a 1,000,000-year-old capsule and then escape the facility. The timekeepers try to stop them with a barricade, but Will and Sylvia manage to break through and reach Dayton. There Leon crashes his car against Will, but he manages to give the time capsule to a girl, who distributes the time among the people, giving Will and Sylvia a chance to escape. Leon catches up with him on patrol with Will and Sylvia. Will asks Leon to return some of the time he had previously transferred to him, so that he and Sylvia can survive before their executions, at which point Leon realizes that he forgot to load more time into his watch, so ends up dying in front of them. Will and Sylvia still have a few seconds to live, and Will runs to Leon's patrol to take some time. In a scene he remembers Rachel's death. Will manages to transfer time to Sylvia. She receives him just in time what she needed to survive. The people of the ghetto, now with more time to live, leave the factories and begin to travel to other time zones, ignoring the time tolls between each zone. So the timekeepers or time policemen see how the situation is getting out of hand and decide not act on these facts, so the system begins to crumble. In the last scene, Sylvia and Will are wanted fugitives with 100 years on their heads. They continue to steal and distribute time to overthrow the system, but now in places much more large. Thanks for watching this video. Subscribe to see more videos like this. If you wanted to see more, I recommend this movie.